Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Custer. I work for the University of Michigan-Flint's Office of Economic Development, and more specifically, its Innovation Incubator program. We offer no-cost business incubation services and workshops like this to folks in the community and online every single month. Today, I'm really excited to host the Real Careers in Cybersecurity webinar. This will be led as a moderated discussion by the staff of Bitlyft, a local cybersecurity firm. They'll speak about the benefits and opportunities that arise from a career in cybersecurity. We're very lucky to be joined by Nicholas Pydek, the Chief Marketing Officer and our moderator for today's discussion, as well as Noah Hoig, Cybersecurity Engineer, and Austin Awalt, Software Developer. And so I'll hand over the conversation to them. And our first question today is going to be, how did you get into cybersecurity?
So my name is Noah. I first got interested in cybersecurity, I would say probably my sophomore year of high school. Back then, I definitely didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had the thought around cybersecurity as, oh, I'm going to come in, stop hackers or hack somebody, and that's what I thought this field would entail. As I progressed through, the high school classes of just basic coding, and then I got into college, definitely taking those additional classes towards cybersecurity helped shape my mind around what actually this field entails. And so that's kind of how I got interested in cybersecurity. Some of the classes that I took throughout college definitely helped shape towards the relative path in the field that I wanted to go into. There's a lot of different aspects of cybersecurity, like Austin develops. Right now I do analyst work, but there's also 5, 10, 20 other paths down those specific branches that you can take. You just got to find what you like to do, what you have fun doing, and then just ride that out.
Yeah, that's good. Austin, so introduce yourself and what do you do at Bitlyft?
Yeah, so I'm Austin. I am primarily a developer at Bitlyft. I also do some analyst work, but for the most part, I'm working in AWS, building software to help the analyst team here at Bitlyft. So basically, building software to make Noah's job easier is my job description.
Awesome. So I like to start with this question, Noah and Austin, what is one thing that you love about your job, and what's one thing that is the most challenging about your job? And I'll start with you, Noah.
Yeah, one of the things I'd say I love most about my job is, unlike other fields, you come in every day and there's something new. There's been very little amount of times I've actually came to the office and that same problem has occurred from the day before. We're always working on something new. Something new's popped up that we need to look at, finish up, or a new threat came out just last night or whatever, and then we need to go investigate that. And then one of the least favorite parts of my job kind of entails that. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. Something's always changing, so there's a lot of things that break. So that makes my job a little more difficult, and then I have to make Austin's job a little bit more difficult because he's got to figure out how to go and fix that for us. So yeah, so it's a double-edged sword, but I mean, it's fun. It's fun learning about it.
That's great. Austin, what about you? What do you love about your job? What's one thing that's really challenging?
Is it bad that I basically have the same answer? Because what I love about it is the variety. I'm coming in, and we might have some long-term plans for a project, but what I do day to day will change day to day just based on what happened yesterday and what happened 2 hours ago. So and then on the flip side of that, it sucks when I'm invested in something and then oh, this came up, you got to go do this for a while now, you got to go fix this or get this thing automated, et cetera, et cetera. So the variety keeps things from being boring, but sometimes it teeters on the verge of chaos. But that is how this field operates in general.
Yeah, and another question right back to you, Austin, is so you focusing on computer science and developing. How did you get more interested in the cybersecurity aspect of that? Because obviously, developing could be a lot of different things. What was like brought you into cybersecurity?
So that would be around sophomore year of high school, probably. And it started with circumventing the school's monitoring software because I didn't like it. I thought it was dumb, and it made the laptops run slow. I was tired of the laptop running slow, so I worked out ways to kill that, get privilege escalation through the terminal, etc. And that was what got me into cybersecurity, was just because I was frustrated that the laptops were running slow. They ran a lot faster without the tracking software running on them. And that kind of ballooned out into hash cracking. I got into because hash cracking is like a puzzle, and I like puzzles. And then kind of expanded into college. I joined the IT support crew there at my university. So
that's great. No, what about you? What got you interested in cybersecurity? Walk us through what your kind of trajectory was and how you got into cybersecurity.
Yeah, I know I kind of touched point on it a little earlier, but the majority is what got me interested in was like hearing everything on the news about this place got hacked, and so forth, and just wanting to be that person to stop it. So the way I kind of went about it was a little different than Austin. I convinced my dad that I needed to build this awesome gaming computer that I could code on. So I could start my cybersecurity path. So though I was able to use that for like setting up VMs and stuff and having fun that way, that's kind of how I got interested in it, was building my first computer. That kind of triggered me into, wanting to continue down the path, and then ended up really focusing on just the cybersecurity side of IT.
That's great. Now, Austin, you mentioned this. I know this just from my time here at Bitlyft, but you mentioned this aspect of developers and security analysts. Austin, from your side, could you talk through like what does security analyst, and Noah weigh in on this as well? Why do these two things need to be hand in hand, and why is that kind of our philosophy here at Bitlyft?
Well, with cybersecurity, you're inevitably going to be getting into a lot of data, threat feeds, intelligence, and you're going to be working a lot with Linux. Linux is huge in security because the web runs on Linux. So the development kind of goes hand in hand, because when it comes to processing that data, working with those systems, if you're doing everything manually, you're just throwing hours to the wind. And not to mention, it's just soul crushing to do the same thing every day. So the more you can automate, the better you can do your job. The more you can leverage the computers you're using to do work for you, the better you can do your job, the more enjoyable your job will be.
What about from your perspective, Noah?
Yeah, so from my perspective, as the analyst, we were looking through, alerts all day long, looking at alerts, going through and threat hunting in everyone's environment, trying to figure out what can we automate next. If there's something that's triggering that's a false positive, how can we turn it into not a false positive and make it an actual good alarm to use? And then we come back to Austin or the development team, and then discuss to them what we're seeing, and then get their feedback and how can we automate that to make our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, and for those who might not know this terminology, maybe some people do, and they're familiar with it, but what does threat hunting look like? I know it's different in every scenario, but could you walk us through just what that process looks like, both mentally and then technically from your side, as we're protecting people?
Yeah, so threat hunting can mean, and you can do it a lot of different ways. I have a different threat hunting strategy than Austin might have or other team members. You just kind of find out what you're comfortable doing and what works best for you. But it's really just digging into the weeds of someone's network traffic. So take their firewall, for example. You could probably spend all day just looking at 10,000 logs on that firewall and going down every little rabbit hole, trying to figure out what IP it's going out to, and then using tools like Shodan or OnFeed to see what that IP resolves to. Is it on a threat list? What ports are open on that IP? What specific server is it running? So, and then from there, you can branch off even farther. So then you can do some threat hunting on that specific IP, see what else is going to that IP or externally or internally in the network. So, I mean, it's a spider web. You can get lost in it pretty quick, but threat hunting overall is just going into the weeds of network traffic that you see.
That's great. And Austin, a question for you, this kind of ties in there. What are some typical tools that you use on a day-to-day basis? What are kind of like your top 3 or 4 tools you're using almost every day?
AWS is the biggest. Everything I do is in AWS. If you count terminal as a tool, we all never not have a terminal session open somewhere. I'm pretty sure like no one here doesn't have a terminal open at any given point. I typically have more like 3 or 4. And I end up using Postman a lot just because I'm more on the developer-centric side. So I built a couple of APIs for Bitlyft for the analysts to use, and so Postman is a big tool for me. But I guess could we count the SIMs as a tool, because that is our biggest tool. So the SIMs themselves being the log collection sources and the place where we do threat hunting, analysis, alarm triage, that kind of stuff. That's the biggest tool that we work with. And so the SIM platforms that we support, we spend everything we do at some point ties back to those.
No, what about for you?
Yeah, mine's kind of tied into Austin's as well. So I dabble a little bit in the AWS side too, but more likely than not, it is Austin. But some of the tools I use can be more specific towards threat hunting. So the SIM, like Austin mentioned, that just gives us the raw logs that we're ingesting, the visibility to make it easy for someone to understand the data that they're seeing. And then, so I use like OnFeed, like I mentioned, OnFeed, Shodan, just to help with the threat hunting process of knowing where the traffic is going by doing IP lookups on there. We always have a terminal open, so that as well. And then if I find some different tools that can help with just the threat hunting process, I'll use those as well. So those I can find, from like GitHub or different sources. Yeah, mainly the same tools, a little bit different, but we all use them.
That's great. This question I like to ask because I like to think about like what are people expectations going into something. Like you think about like a business career, you're like, oh, I'm going to run a company or something like that, or in cybersecurity or developing, like, hey, I'm going to write games or code or develop this particular tool. From each of you, for your perspective, and I'll start with you, Noah. What's something that you assumed about this field that like completely surprised you once you got in it? Did you have any like big paradigm shifts or like any assumptions that were just like shattered when you actually got into the field? And then I'll kick it over to Austin too.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would have been like what I perceived cybersecurity as. So not only is it just you have your hackers that you always hear about, your hackers defending hackers, but there's a lot of different pieces that involve cybersecurity as well, maintaining servers, making sure those are up and running correctly. Your security tools are all working properly. Doing the additional threat hunting to stop those hackers and those threats that you see, happening around you. And then correlating that data and making sure that you understand what needs to be done in order to stop that, what needs to be done in order for that alarm to go off to prevent that. So you get visibility into it. Yeah, I guess the perception of what actually I do every day now that I've been in the cybersecurity field compared to when I wasn't, definitely changed a lot.
What about for you, Austin?
One thing that took me by surprise was probably how sparsely populated the field is. There is a lack of cybersecurity professionals just in general, at least in this country. And everyone, you have IT departments where everyone has some sort of security role, but the idea of a dedicated role in the IT team to security is a relatively new thing. Like, that's only the last few years that's really started to kick off. And that took me by surprise. I really thought that there were more people out there specializing in cybersecurity, but there's not.
That's good. Yeah. And for those of you who are putting in questions in the chat, we will get to them. And I've got a couple of questions that will tie into some of them organically. We won't have to wait to the end. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is what advice would you give to somebody starting out into this field from your perspective, Noah, and Austin, you as well? Somebody's, just starting out, what would you tell them? Like, if you could go back and rewind the clock, what would you tell yourself, or what would you tell people here as advice from your perspective? And I'll start with you, Austin.
For me, I'm not a very booky person. I don't learn much from books. So for me, it was just going out, finding some little piece of the field that was interesting to me. So for me, that was hash cracking, because I'm into puzzles, and that was like a puzzle. So download some public hash lists and go at it. And then just kind of go from there. And as just basically doing exercises in whatever interested me. And that got me the sort of intrinsic, sort of instinctual understandings of cybersecurity and sort of the fundamentals of how things work on the low end.
Yeah, and then from my side, one of the things would be to be able to be teachable. I think that's really big in the space that we're in, because every day something may change. There might be the API might change. You might have to relearn the API. Different logging might change. You might have logging from a firewall coming in one way 1 week, and then there was changes made to the logging, and now it's coming in differently. So you just got to be able to be teachable and learnable about just everything going around you that's changing.
That's great. So somebody had asked in the chat, did your degree prepare you well for this career, or are there other resources and opportunities that prepared you more effectively? Or I'll add on to that in a different way. And I'll let you answer this first, Noah.
Yeah, so my degree was in information technology. I had a few classes for Cisco networking. My school at the time, until my last year there, didn't have any cybersecurity related classes. So it was all networking and just basic information technology. Compared to my first year working at Bitlyft, I would say I learned more that first year at Bitlyft, actually being hands-on, than I think I did throughout all of college. I think giving yourself the ability to be hands-on, whether, there's tools out there like Hack the Box, which is a good tool to use to learn different things that you can use without having that job right away. Just having that knowledge and tool set on how to do stuff like that. So I do think the classes helped me in a way to understand the atmosphere of IT better. But I do believe being in the field definitely helped shape the knowledge I have in you know, the knowledge I have in cybersecurity related to what I did in school.
Yeah, that's great. What about for you, Austin?
So my degree, I had a concentration in software development. My school did have available a cybersecurity program. I just didn't go into that. But what I would say is, given what I've seen of the cybersecurity classes at my school and what I learned at Bitlyft, I would concur with Noah that on the job or hands-on experience at least is better than classes. And you'll need to take the classes, and you might need to take some certs depending on where you're trying to get into. But what really matters is that hands-on intuitive understanding, because actually going out and doing it is a lot different from reading it in a book. And just until you can get that hands-on experience, keep your ear to the ground when exploits come out or big hacks happen. Read the technical articles on how it happened, who messed up or whatever, or what mistake led to it allowing to be happened, etc. And you start to get a feel for what people are dealing with in the actual field.
Now, you mentioned certifications from your perspective, kind of practical. I know you'll each have a particular opinion based off of where you went in your career, but are there any certifications that carry a lot of weight in your circles? And, I know that's going to be really individualized, like you said, Austin, like based off of where you want to go and end up. But are there any that like you could share with the audience here that like are pretty good staples and something that has value and is seen as valuable within the space?
Yeah. So certifications mean a lot for that job application, trying to get into the field. Some of the ones that are highly sought after or highly looked on can be found like on CompTIA. I'm not sure if you guys are all familiar with that, but there's different paths and avenues you can go down with CompTIA. And for example, the CompTIA Networking Plus, there's a Security Plus, there's Cloud Plus, there's the basic fundamentals. So there's different avenues you can go down based on what you want to do. So there's a whole bunch to choose from. CompTIA is not the only certification provider. There's other ones as well. But yes, I would say certifications are highly valuable in this space.
What about for you, Austin?
Yeah, so like Noah said, CompTIA is definitely a good place to go. It's pretty widely, CompTIA is pretty widely I lost
respected.
The word. Yes, that's the word. Sorry, thank you. It's pretty widely respected, accepted in the field. So Network Plus, Security Plus are kind of your basic general cover my bases thing. You might also want to get your certified ethical hacker if you're trying to go more into the red hat kind of thing. Your certified information security systems professional, your CISP. There are a lot of certifications out there. A lot of them cover similar content. You'll want to start probably with the CompTIA, I think. And then start looking at what position that you do want to do, what role you want to fill in cybersecurity, and start looking for what certifications those positions require. Because what you're doing specifically, what your role is, will change what you need to know how to do, and thus what certifications they're going to be looking for on that application.
That's great. Now, you mentioned CompTIA and a couple tools. Noah, you mentioned a couple tools as well. Are there other good resources that people can use to go start learning these skills? So obviously cybersecurity, there's a lot of different positions, a lot of different fields, and a lot of different, specializations within it. Is there a place for people to try stuff out and see what they like, or just resources that you guys respect to go and do that, rather than just like waiting to get into it and you get a career and then you kind of move around laterally or make a pivot? How can people do that, kind of on the outside to see what they really like doing?
Yeah, I'll answer that one first. Like one of the things I mentioned, hack the box. It's a fun little thing to do, and there's a bunch of different levels. Just try to find, it's basically like capture the flag, and it's free. All you gotta do is make an account. Another one would be to play around with APIs. So if you want to see what the development career path could possibly be like, use your APIs, like Spotify has API. Just look at the documentation, try playing around with it, seeing what you could come up with. But some other things are like Cyber Social, that you can look at all the latest security news there. And then there's also additional podcasts, that if you guys like listening to podcasts and want to know more up-to-date security related stuff there, there's some that's called Cybersecurity Today, there's Darknet Diaries, and then Paul's Security Weekly are some of the podcasts that we highly recommend.
What about for you, Austin?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about the cybersecurity field is there are like capture the flag style events happening, sponsored by tons of different groups, happening all over the place, various different seasons and times. There are tons of other competitions, not specifically CTF. Some are sponsored by the government. Those are good ones, especially if you're trying to not only get that training and experience, but recognition. That's a place where employers will be looking. There's the National Cyber League, which does a lot of virtual training and things for if you're just trying to get plugged into that information, and they also host competitions and stuff. But there's a huge community in cybersecurity. There's a lot of content being put out there. There's something for everyone. So really just kind of put your feelers out and find a community to plug into would be my recommendation.
What about conferences? Like, would you guys recommend like DEF CON or GERCON? It's here over in Grand Rapids. What do you guys think would be of value or interesting?
Yeah, I'll give my opinions on that one. So there's a lot of fun conferences, DEF CON, GERCON. Sometimes you can learn good things there. Most of the time, there's a lot of people telling stories of what they've done, or you can go there and try to hack stuff, do like pick locking, or try to hack a car or capture the flag. I would suggest trying to find like local meetups that actually go over specific projects, like each night. Like they show you how to, one of the ones I went to showed you how to walk through setting up a Docker container, installing Docker, and setting up web pages on Docker, or via Docker, I should say. And then, there's other ones that I did. There was one in Ann Arbor that I did for AWS. I went into that thinking I was going to learn something for Bitlyft that we could use, and we learned about how to, set up the AWS cars, the car thing that they have going on. I don't know, Austin, what that's called, but that's what we learned. But I think learning is more important than going out and having fun. Those ones are good to go to, but you'll get more information off of local meetups.
That's good. Austin, what are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I pretty much I concur with Noah. There are a lot of the big fun cons that are not super informative unless you're there for storytelling, or you're there to try to hack someone with a pineapple. The pie kind of pineapple, not the fruit. But look for local meetups first. The bigger cons are going to be less experiential, instructional, and more sort of like a lecture, I guess. I don't know. And as for the AWS race car thing, I don't know what it's called either. It's like Race Maker or something. I don't know. AWS names their services weird.
Something that's kind of fun that I'm interested in, and I'm sure everybody's got their own little project. And Austin, you've been sharing some stuff on our drives into the office. But what are some fun pet projects you guys are working on that you'd be willing to share or talk about that you do on the side? Anything interesting?
Austin may have more of those than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I pick up random side projects all the time. Sometimes it's just like a program idea that I had that like, oh, this might be neat. Nothing particularly useful. My most recent thing that I'm working on is just a Discord bot. It does very dumb things. There's no point to it. I just wanted to know how to make a Discord bot, and so I did. And that's the kind of stuff. It's just sort of like exercising my programming ability, I guess. Just going out and doing random things unrelated to security completely, just to kind of get something different in my head.
Yeah, and the ones I wouldn't necessarily call them projects. They're, I would say, tool like investigations. I use Kitploit a lot, so most of my projects consist of trying to find new tools. So going on to websites like Kitploit or via like Twitter feeds that I follow or Reddit feeds, and just installing tools and seeing what they do.
That's great. And this question just came in, and I certainly have my perspective on it as well. But the question is, being in the cybersecurity field must make you aware of those skill sets of those around you possess. Does this ever make you feel like you need to remain a bit more guarded or discreet when associating with other people in the field, such as a meetup? Or just how has your perspective changed on vulnerability of your information since getting into this field?
Yeah, so my response to that, you know, I would say be open, but like be open to learning new things from somebody else. So if they have a different opinion than yours on a certain subject, or they may know more than you on that specific subject, be open to learn, but be confident in what the knowledge that you do have.
I would say don't there shouldn't be a need to feel like guarded or discreet. You're talking to other people that have a similar interest. Presumably, if they're in the cybersecurity field, they probably have similar interests. And at that point, it's like talking shop. Obviously, if you actually have a position somewhere, you can't just hand people keys to the kingdom. But talking about strategies, what does and doesn't work, kind of your approach to certain types of problems, be open about that, because that kind of discussion is how people, if we don't share that information, then we're all trying to rebuild the wheel at the same time, where we should be trying to build the wheel together. Because, if the efforts of stopping hacks and exploits are disjointed, then we're going to constantly be on an uphill battle.
That's great. And another question that came in was somebody was told there was a lot of paperwork involved in cybersecurity. Is that true? Do you guys do a lot of paperwork? When was the last time you've seen a sheet of paper?
I haven't seen a sheet of paper in a couple of years. Paperwork as in typing, like reports and stuff. That, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but most of it we can, have on a scheduled basis. So we just run it once, and it schedules to run every month, every quarter, what have you. Yeah, zero paper. I'm all on my laptop.
Now, the paper trail can pick up when you start talking about topics like auditing and compliances. That's where you start to get in more into the paperwork. It really depends on the compliances that whatever company you're at is trying to hit, or whether or not they get audits or need to be audited, that kind of thing. That's really where the paper trail starts to pick up. But our day-to-day work doesn't involve any physical paper for sure. And as far as reports go, like Noah said, we just make them look pretty at some point and then get the computer to send them out for us.
That's great. Another question that came into was, what should a student be doing now to prepare to get that first job in cybersecurity? And I'll start with you, Noah, if you have any particular advice on what students should be doing to prepare now to get a job in cybersecurity.
Yeah, I know I've gone back on this a couple times already, but just gaining more knowledge around this whole space. So I say I wouldn't stay focused on one specific path. So if, for example, you want to go into development, I'd dabble in development and then also dabble in everything else, learn what everything else does and see what they can do to combine together. So I would, go to meetups, get the knowledge there, the base knowledge, and then, have fun doing it and just keep doing it. I think that's one of the best ways to get into this
as in interpersonal networking. Find people who are in the space, talk to them, share interests with that. Just sort of put your feelers out. Social networking is the best way to get anywhere in terms of finding a job, because that's how people will be like, oh, well, this position just opened up in X place, because they're already in that space. They know what's going on. So finding people and connecting with people that are in the field is probably the best way to get into a job. That's how I got into my job. So.
That's great. Somebody had asked about the pandemic and work shifting. How has work shifted since the pandemic and working remotely in the cybersecurity field? How has that affected you guys as a team?
So I'm going to cover both ends of it, what we're doing, what we're seeing remotely, and then as a team remotely. So for those that, like our clients that we're working on that are remote, it's tough. Everyone's working from home. It's hard to get the visibility that we once had. Based on just the log volume itself. All the students are gone. People are working from home, and then as far as Bitlyft's end, the big struggle is communication. You got to have communication within your team to fully understand what's going on, what everyone's doing, and then get opinions based on that. We all are here to help each other, and if we're all working from home, it kind of hurts that a little bit. We got to make sure our communication is on top.
Yeah. So a lot of fields, not just cybersecurity, have seen a definite shift towards remote work just during the pandemic. That's been the case in general. I know one of our clients actually got rid of their HQ completely. They just don't plan on ever going back to a physical workplace. They're just entirely work remote now. And their work remote is a lot of fun. As Noah said, there's value in being in person, being able to sort of just commune with and I guess fraternize with your team is the best way I can put it, and just sort of building those trust relationships and being able to talk quickly back and forth about an issue rather than, okay, hey, can I schedule a Zoom call? Are you free at 1? That kind of thing. But that being said, if you're looking for a remote job, cybersecurity is a pretty good bet, because everything that we do aside from the talking can be done remotely. I mean, our workplace is just laptops connected to docking stations. We take the laptops home, and when we do work from home, everything's just done on the laptop. So we can work from anywhere with an internet connection.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, you know, our company at Bitlyft is an extension, and we're augmenting people's security teams if they don't have one or they do. So we're even remote from their environment. So, you know, the traditional model is you've got an IT staff and a security staff on premise, and they're managing all the stuff. But as the industry is moving more and more to the cloud, as Noah mentioned, people are working from home or students are from home. That changes the landscape and how you protect it. So a lot of what we do from our job is to help people remotely by monitoring their network. So just to add to what Austin and Noah said is, you know, that's the space that we're helping organizations and companies do, even as a business model for us at Bitlyft. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity. I think this is the other thing too in the industry, as it's already been mentioned. The demand is going up, and the amount of people to fill those job postings and options are less than pretty substantially less than the job openings. So if you want to work from home, you know, I'm sure you could probably make that play at your place of organization. And it really just comes down to, as Noah mentioned as well, what works well for your team? How do you stay effective? I think companies are all trying to figure that out. If that's going to work or not, it's a new model in some instances. So, but yeah, lots of really good stuff there to work from home and work remotely and still be effective. So last question I want to ask on my end, and then I'll kick this back over to Nick to wrap up, or any additional questions that we missed. But where do you guys like to go for real information? What are the places that you like? I know Noah, you mentioned Cyber Social. Are there any other, you know, forums, blogs? Like where can people get real, like good advice or really good feedback? What would you recommend for people to go and look at?
Yeah, so I think Cyber Social podcasts on cyber security related topics on like Spotify, on Apple Music, whatever platform you have. And then also just following people on social media that are in the space. So there's like Kit Ploit, they have, you know, their website, but they also have a Twitter feed. So they do post a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot of feedback there that you can learn some good information on, and as well as following individual users on social media that are in this space and are tweeting every day on brand new emotets or trick bots out there. So it's just it's really everywhere. Just do a Google search. Googling we call research. So do some research and you'll be able to find something, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, Google is your friend, or whatever search engine you prefer. If you prefer DuckDuckGo because you don't like Google tracking you, because they do. And I'm big on Reddit, so I browse the various subreddits related to cybersecurity or specific subgenres of cybersecurity, because there's a subreddit for everything. But that's forums are my cup of tea. So Security Exchange, the Stack Exchange websites, Reddit, that kind of thing. And so, you know, I'll have a news article come across my feed that has something cybersecurity related. I'll read the article and then I'll go see what Reddit is saying about it, because, you know, that's active discussion from people who are in the field usually. So it's good to see kind of how they're processing the same information.
That's great. And last thing, Nick, and then I'll give it over to you. I just saw these last couple things come through. Is Bitlyft hiring, or does Bitlyft offer any internships? And we do have an apprenticeship at Bitlyft. It is one of the precursors to hiring. A lot of it takes you through just kind of how you think, and you know, it's our way of just understanding your thought process and to give you kind of a broad spectrum on the cybersecurity community. But if you're interested in that, we do look at those as a precursor to hiring here on our security team. But if you're interested in that, you can go to our website at bitlyft.com. There's a contact page. Put your name right in there and just say you're interested in the internship, and we'll connect the dots for you. So with that, Nick, thanks for having us, and I'll kick it back over to you for any last minute items here.
Thank you very much, Nick. And again, it's been great to get the insider's point of view on these things. I think, this will be exceedingly relevant, not only to our students, but our community partners going forward. And again, I just greatly appreciate your time today. I've always got more questions, but I think the best way for us to move forward is if anyone's interested, we can connect you guys for additional conversations going forward, or you can learn more about how Bitlyft maybe could help you in your emerging company. But I think the biggest thing is there's an opportunity here for all of our students and all of our participants to see a pathway to a strong future, to a strong career in this field or in related fields. And to that point, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. So as you guys may or may not know, we will be bringing Bitlyft back. We really enjoyed the content today, and these guys are kind of local experts in the field. And so their next workshop is going to actually be towards the end of this month. It's going to speak to a little different context. It's going to speak to the cyber maturity model certification, which is a brand new government requirement if you work for the DoD, Department of Defense, and government contracting for small manufacturers. And while that all may feel like something that's not necessarily connected to where you're at today in your careers, I think there's a value even for students to understand how ubiquitous the need for cybersecurity going forward is going to be, and how relevant these skills can be in many different sectors. So even if you're not in manufacturing today, you're not interested in getting this in the next 3 years where it's required, it would really put you guys ahead in terms of knowledge as you go out into the workforce to know what these requirements are and how you can be that expert or help companies find their way through that. So again, we'll send out some follow-up emails to everyone that registered for today's event with a recording of the video in case you had anything you wanted to go back and listen to again, as well as some additional links to registration for this upcoming event and others. So I really encourage you guys to check that out. Again, we're just really grateful to have these kind of knowledgeable partners. In addition to that, I would be remiss to not mention that we have also launched our own Cybersecurity Technology Center at U of M-Flint as part of the larger statewide Cyber Range Hub. And it is our intention in the next months and coming year to start offering those types of certifications gentlemen spoke to today to community members as well as students. We're still working out the details on that, but we're looking at again, the various kind of relevant certifications that were brought up, as low level as the A+ certification up to the networking, things like that, as we kind of get a nice dedicated base. So if that's of interest, we have an additional contact I can put you in with Philip Francis in our office. And again, just so many opportunities for you guys to engage, both in the private sector today, or even still with the opportunities here on campus. The last quick thing I want to share is our next upcoming event. We are starting a somewhat related series in collaboration with the College of Arts and Sciences. And that will be around liberal learning entrepreneurialism, the fourth industrial revolution. So speaking to a lot of the kind of cutting edge disruptive technologies that are out today, specifically smart technologies and smart cities, and really wrapping into with this discussion with our Chancellor, Debra Dutta, how can we move forward in academia to support these kind of revolutionary applications? And specifically, how will the College of Information and Technology that has just been formed at U of M-Flint contribute to that? And so again, we can send that flyer out to you guys today. That's more of a discussion, but it's a great opportunity for you also to ask the Chancellor and other relevant experts, what is the direction going forward and how can we play a part in that? So again, I just really am grateful for everyone joining us today. We'll send you a follow-up email with any additional contact and links. And we look forward to seeing you at our next one. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you guys. Take care, everybody.